Hey guys, welcome back to Musings of Mavry. I'm your host Mavry, and today we're going to be looking at Goblin Slayer episode 11. So, it's been a while, 2 weeks to be exact, since the last time we looked at Goblin Slayer. Last week was sort of like a recap episode that talked about the story so far from the viewpoint of a third-party narrator. I believe it's the cowgirl. And since it's just a recap episode, I thought it wasn't needed to make an episode specifically for it. So, right now episode 11 is released, and we can continue the story here. Before I start, I'd like to give a quick shout out to another channel. For some disclaimers, I'm not affiliated with that channel, and he actually doesn't know me, but I just thought it would be nice to recommend some content that is relevant to this series as well. And the channel I'm going to recommend is Shad from Shadiversity. So his channel name is Shadiversity. I might put some links here or something, if I can figure it out anyways. So the reason I would like to recommend his channel is because he recently did 2 videos on Goblin Slayer. One is where he talked about, sort of like the subject matter of Goblin Slayer, its controversies, and how he feels about the situation. His thoughts mirror my thoughts almost exactly. Obviously, I have no problem with this subject matter that is being touched on by Goblin Slayer, and that is why I'm continuing to react to it. And I assume you, the viewers, are okay with it as well, or at least okay in the sense of you're not disturbed to the point where you don't want to watch this anime. And but it's kind of hard to really, whenever you get into an argument or whatnot, on why it's still okay to have this kind of touchy subject in anime, right? And so I think Shad did a great job explaining in his video all the finer points and details about the controversy surrounding Goblin Slayer. So go check that one out. The second video is in regards to the armor that Goblin Slayer uses. So his channel is basically he's sort of like a historical martial arts, or anything related with historical combat. That is what his channel mainly focuses on. Like the medieval periods, how the castles were built, what kind of fighting styles they employed, what kind of armor they wore, those kinds of things. So it's always fun, and he recently has branched out to do some fantasy subjects, so that includes Goblin Slayer. For any of you viewers who've watched my first episode, you would know that when I look at a fantasy series, I also try and look back to see what kind of settings this series would have, and that includes the armor, the fighting styles, so on and so forth. So in the first episode, I made some comments in regards to the armor and the weaponry and whatnot that Goblin Slayer uses. And, well, Shad is way more qualified than I am, and so he expanded a little bit more on this subject. So if you're interested in that kind of, more finer details, you can also check out his second video, where he talks about the various fighting styles and armor and weapons of Goblin Slayer. So, again, I'm not affiliated with him. He doesn't know me. I've just been watching his videos for a long time now, and I thought those 2 videos were relevant to this anime. So, go check him out. Especially if you like more in-depth, detailed explanation, which I'm assuming you would like, since my channel, at least I try to focus a little bit more on looking at a series through an analytical standpoint, right? And yeah, so that's that. Last episode, where we left off, it was more of a, I guess, filler episode, building up to sort of like this big finale. We're in the penultimate episode now, so episode 11, the last episode would be the next one, episode 12, and as far as I know, there's going to be a huge battle coming up in regards to Goblin Slayer and his main antagonist, the goblins, right? And as far as I know, it's going to be pretty hype and pretty epic, so I'm very looking forward to this. So, without further ado, let's just jump right in. I've cut out the opening, and we can begin immediately. So, countdown in 3, 2, 1, go. A gathering of adventurers.
おはよう。待ってて。今朝ごはん準備しちゃうから。逃げろ。
Okay, so this is immediately after the last episode where he discovered the footprints of goblins. Tracks.
ゴブリンだ。でも倒せるんじゃないの？君なら。無理だ。
Too many?
たとえ100匹だろうと、洞窟の中ならば、俺は勝とう。何をどうやって勝つ。だが、物見の足跡は10匹はあった。
10 sets of scout.
盗木がいるのは明らかだ。ホブ、シャーマン。いや、規模から察するに、おそらくは。
Must be
敵はゴブリンの王。
King of Goblins?
ゴブリンロードだ。
Goblin Lord. So maybe like an epic or unique monster. I'm assuming there's not going to be only one in the world, right? Yeah, if there's only like one unique Goblin Lord and there's only 100 goblins, that seems a little bit small. $100. When they were in the dungeon, I think the time where they almost died, that was about 50 goblins, right? With a party of 5.
よし。決めたか。うん。ごめんね。私は逃げない。だって残る気なんだもん、君が。ほら、やっぱり困ると黙るよね。昔から。死ぬだけでは済まんぞ。うん。だろうね。
Yeah.
俺は見ていた。うん。助かると思うな。生きていられたとしても心が死ぬ。だから逃げろ。だから嫌だってば。だって2回目は嫌だもん。君が帰ってこられるところまたなくなっちゃうじゃん。それにほら、避難しても家畜とか牛とか羊とかなくなっちゃうと、ほら、その後がそうか。うん。ほんとごめんね。わがまま言ってる自覚は私もあるから。そんな顔するな。
That is a creepy face.
やれるだけのことはやってみる。女の子は守ってあげなくちゃダメだ。
I kind of wonder who helped repel the first attack.
すみません。そのあの子はいい子だ。いい子に育ってくれたんだ。だから泣かせるな。努力します。
So he's going to prepare, I guess. Ask for help.
ゴブリンスレイヤー。なんだ、生きてやがったのか。なんかよかよ。
You're still alive. What?
すまん、聞いてくれ。頼みがある。
ゴブリンスレイヤーが頼み？
あいつソロじゃなかったのか？
いや、最近は何人かと組んでるらしいぜ。はあ。
ゴブリンの群れが来る。町外れの牧場にだ。時期はおそらく今夜。数はわからん。
なんだ、やっぱりゴブリンか。ゴブリンが群れって普通じゃん。
石膏の足跡の多さから見て、ロードがいるはずだ。つまり、100匹は下らんだろう。
100匹？ゴブリンが100匹？
Is 100 goblins really that much?
なんだよそれ。おい、どういうことだよ。
ロードって？
そう。
ロードは統率力に特化した変異種だ。ゴブリンの中では最上級と言える。
最上級？
So even the top
そい
rank
つを率いる群れがすぐにやってくる。
only leads 100
洞
goblins?
窟の中ならともかく、野戦となると俺一人では手が足りん。手伝ってほしい。頼む。
どうする？
どうするったってな。
ゴブリンな。自分でやりゃいいじゃねえか。俺はごめんだぜ。
私もあいつら汚いし。
おい、お前なんか勘違いしてないか。ここは冒険者ギルドで、俺たちは冒険者だぜ。お願いなんざ聞く義理はねえ。依頼を出せよ。つまり報酬だなあ。
何よそれ。
耳ながの。今出ていくとややこしいことになるぞ。気持ちはわかりまするが、今は待たれよ。
Is he actually trying to help him?
ああ、もっともな意見だ。
ああ、じゃあ言ってみな。ゴブリン100匹の相手をさせる報酬をよ。
すべてだ。
あ？
Everything.
俺の持つもの、すべてが報酬だ。
どういうことだ？
俺の持ち物、俺の裁量で自由になるものだ。俺の装備、財産、能力、時間、そして
命か。
そうだ。命もだ。
なら俺が死ねっつったらどうすんだよ。
いや、それは無理だ。
あ？
俺が死ぬと泣くかもしれん者がいる。泣かせるなと言われた。だから俺の命は俺の裁量ではどうにもならないらしい。
Now that is badass.
お前が何考えてんだか俺にはさっぱりわからねえが、お前が本気らしいってことはわかる。
ああ、俺は本気だ。
どちくしょうめ。お前の命なんざいるかこの野郎。後で一杯おごれ。なんだよ、相場だろうが。銀等級の冒険者がゴブリン退治してやるって言ってるんだ。喜べ依頼人。
Yeah, so he is trying to help him.
すまん。ありがとう。
よせよせ、退治してやってくれ。そんなセリフは。
私もゴブリン退治やるわ。その代わりまた一緒に来なさい。今度こそあなたに本当の冒険をさせてやるわ。
いいだろう。
わしゃ一杯とは言わんぞ、髪切り丸。酒だるをよこせ。
わかった。手配しよう。
わしもその冒険についていってもいいかの。
And I'm assuming cheese for
仲間じゃないの。
the lizard man.
あれば節操もいかぬわけにはいくまいて。何構わん、友人の頼みだが、報酬というのであれば
チーズか。
Yep.
それとできれば
アイスクリーンか。
Cheese and ice.
あれらは実に美味だ。
And where's
で
Priestess?
はない。が、両方とも牧場で作られている。
なれば地の底から這い出た悪鬼どもを許す道理はないな。
これで5人か。
いいえ、6人。
あ？
インフラマラエ。もしかすると7人目かもだけどね。
Priestess?
ギルドからも依頼があります。ゴブリン1匹につき金貨1枚の懸賞金を出します。チャンスですよ。
マジかよ。ゴブリン1匹で金貨1枚。
Girl.
いいんですよね。
銀等級の冒険者からの情報だ。問題はあるまい。それにあ
れほど熱心に詰め寄られてはな。
So everybody's coming to help him?
行くのか？
俺はゴブリンスレイヤーなんざ気に食わないが、報酬が出るんだな。
Aw.
まったく素直じゃないやつめ。言えばよかろう。お前の田舎に出たゴブリンを退治したのがあいつだからと。
うっせえ、いいんだよ。こうに殺して金貨1枚が目当てなんだから。
まあ私も聖騎士志望だ。助けを求められればいなやはない。
しゃあない。兄ちゃんと姉ちゃんが行くなら俺らも行くか。そうですね。
仕方ないですけど。
Where's Priestess?
なあ、
何よ。
俺まだゴブリン退治やったことないんだ。
危ないって聞いたもんね。
だけどそろそろやっとこうと思うんだよ。
そうね。助けてもらったしね。
俺あいつと同じ日に冒険者になったからさ、これも縁ってやつか。
毎日ゴブリンだって言ってるやつがいないと妙な気分だぜ。
そうそう、ギルドの名物風物詩ってやつだもんな。いたらいたでうざったいが、いなきゃいないで。
I'm still wondering if most of these people are going because of the gold or because they really want to help Goblin Slayer.
仲間でも友人でもないけど冒険者だからな。
Aww. Hey, Priestess.
もちろん私もついていきますよ。
Here they come. What's it gonna be? I'm still a little bit unsure about, the total strength of numbers. Like, what does 100 goblins actually signify? I remember that one is also a silver rank, right? Oh. Is that human shields? I had heard about this before, so I can't say that I'm too shocked, but I am surprised that they actually showed this in the anime. Oh.
あれが盾ね。悪趣味ったらないわ。
盾はこれで最後だ。
呪文使いは見える範囲は潰したわ。
よし。
よし来た。稼ぎ時だ。カットで。
Amazon type?
嫌になっちまうぜ。
コウニ殺し殿もお手上げですからな。当然でしょうや。
やだやだおっかね。
リフレクトミサイルから出ないでね。
おせおせですね。
俺もあっち行けばよかったな。
いや、あれをもう
A flank?
ライダーだ。本当に来た。
They can ride wolves? Okay.
騎兵だ。騎兵が来たぞ。騎兵だ。
よーし、所定の位置まで走れ。
用意ができたら整列しよう。後列は前列の間に構えて後方で距離を置いてバット。馬よりも低くて小さい。ギリギリまで引きつけろ。
So, sort of like a spear brace?
まだだ。今だ。構えろ。
Hmm? Yeah, like a shield brace. Nice.
おのおのこと隠れ。
And I think there's an exact term for that they're using. I need to look that up a little bit later.
死んでる。
ボケっとしてんなよ新人。とにかく獲物をぶち込みな。大丈夫？
ああ、防具買っておいてよかった。
脆い稼ぎだぜ。
ああ、だがあいつの戦術がことごとくハマった結果と言えるな。
待ち伏せをしろ。奴らは奇襲に慣れていてもされることには慣れていない。奴らは肉の盾を使う。眠りの呪文をかけ、その隙に救出させろ。眠ったゴブリンには手を出すな。目が覚めると面倒だ。群れが大きくなると狼を飼い騎乗する。2、30は来るだろうが、この人数なら槍ブスまで対応
Yeah, spear walls. Spear walls.
武器で奴らは殺せる。
I don't know why that slipped my mind.
呪文でやれ。そして敵の呪文使いは真っ先に叩いて潰せ。
Hobgoblins?
あんな見かけでも銀等級ということか。
まったくこんなところにまでちょろちょろ逃げてきやがって。
おい、そっちはどうだ。
Oh.
なんだ。
何か飛んでくるぞ。気をつけ。
Oh. Oh, a bunch of hobgoblins.
今度は本か。いや、大物が嫌がる。ゴブリンチャンピオン。
A champion.
それも2匹。
いい加減雑魚相手も嫌になってたとこだ。大物ぐらいが俺の本職だからな。
まったく私は今討ち取ったゴブリンの首を数えるのに忙しいんだよ。
いいから付き合え。
おい、下がってな。
そうね。
ならば拙僧は奴らの首を端から飛ばしてみせましょう。
こっから先はベテランの戦場だ。腕に自信がない奴は引っ込んでな。
So these are all silver ranked, right?
やるな。
お水もらえる？あ、はい。ありがとう。
一緒にいなくていいんですか？
まあね。むしろ普通のゴブリンを相手にするよりずっと得意。
ゴブリン。そういえばあの人はどこに？
あら？彼が誰だか知っている
Goblin Slayer?
でしょ？ええ。決まってるでしょ？
No, he's gonna go after the Lord? He went to slay some goblins. What is with his eye, though? I still... Who's the monster? Alright, I'll see you guys after the ending. Let me check first to see if there's anything else. So that was episode 11 of Goblin Slayer. And we finally begin the big battle, the big hyped up battle that everybody is saying would be the finale of Goblin Slayer. So we start with again, going back to the last episode, episode 10, Goblin Slayer discovered all these different footprints, and then so he's trying to convince Cowgirl to leave the farm, because hey, he's just one guy, and out in an open battlefield, he can easily be overwhelmed by the numbers. Although 100 goblins, I'm still not entirely sure if that's a number to be very feared or respected, but we'll get to that a little bit later. In any case, Cowgirl says that no, she can't leave because this is her livelihood, and so Goblin Slayer is left to find a way to, you know, save the farm, save Cowgirl, and hopefully not make it so that the goblins burn down or destroy any property in the process. So then he goes to guild and recruits some fellow adventurers, I guess. It's nice to see that he has now a more cordial relationship with the Spear Guy. Spear Guy also helped him back when Goblin Slayer was helping the Sword Maiden. So apparently these two have a sort of relationship, a bro relationship going on. Even though at the beginning Spear Guy didn't really like Goblin Slayer, right? So, you know, in that scene, that was definitely something that I felt that Spear Dude was actively helping Goblin Slayer, even though he might have seemed a little bit more demanding, you know, asking for a reward in return for helping out. But it all worked out fine in the end, right? So, although it's not quite clear from the context whether people are actually in it for the money or they're in it because they would like to help Goblin Slayer. It seems to be a mix of both. And you know, speaking of which, this whole operation can be said as sponsored by the guild, because due to Guild Girl's persuasion, apparently each goblin is now worth 1 gold coin. Now I don't know how much 1 gold coin is worth within this universe, but it's probably not a trivial sum. So essentially, Guild Girl convinced the guild to pay for this sort of like operation, right? Because typically what they do is they receive requests from other people, and then they help post them, and I assume that they get a percentage of the cut. But in this case, since they have no actual client, it's going to be just the guild bringing out the money, bringing out the funds. So that was nice, right? Goblin Slayer's relationships paid off because he has an ally such as Guild Girl, so he's able to gather more adventures this way. So in the end, probably about, if we also look at the fight, maybe 20 or 30 adventures at the same time. And this brings me to the actual battle, right? So there are some issues I have in regards to the battle, although I guess it's in the context of the offer had to structure it in such a way, or else it wouldn't be as compelling, I guess, especially since this is still early on within the story. So I guess you could say there's 2 major mistakes that the goblins made within with the firepower or the manpower that they had, and how they handled the situation. So, first of all, they came in with waves, right? So the first wave was essentially consisting of little goblins and, you know, the normal goblins with human shields. Now the human shield part I actually was not shocked by, because I actually went ahead and spoiled myself since this one was, as to be expected, a little bit even more controversial to material to an already controversial series. Although the pictures that I saw that came from the manga were much more gruesome than the ones that were shown here, which makes sense since anime form typically needs to go through some censorship, right? And you know, it is an unfortunate and definitely a sad and inhumane way of using shields. But you have to say it's effective, right? It's demoralizing to the opponent. You can use the human shield as a hostage, and ensure you. The reason that they would need to use it is because they're crossing an open field. If they didn't have this kind of thing, it'd be easy to just rain down arrows or AoE attacks onto them. So having shields is a good protection for the goblins. And by the way, this does have some historical context to it because there are documented records of militaries in the past using human shields. It makes sense. You have to think that it's an effective tool. Although nowadays it's outlawed by the Geneva Convention, so you can't really do something like that anymore unless you want to be condemned by the entire international community. And then so after that, then the writers came in, and then eventually the hobgoblins and the champions. So the first problem I had with this is, why the heck did they make it so that it's sort of like a wave attack? You know, if any of you have played tower defense games, it's like a wave attack where you gradually get more and more difficult opponents, right? So that really doesn't make much sense to me. Normal, especially in the context of if you have a superior force, you're supposed to overwhelm your enemies at the same time using this superior force. So if these goblins really did have intelligence, they would have put all the army, the entire army, and you know, invaded or attacked at the same time instead of going this through wave and wave and wave. Because by doing this, you're essentially allowing your opponent to concentrate their firepower to be of equal status, or even bigger status than in terms of firepower than your own, right? So if the 100 goblins, around 100 goblins number is true, then if we break it down, there's like what? 2 champions, maybe 10 hobgoblins, maybe 30 riders, and if that's the case, then 60 normal goblins, right? And if we look at the past and how silver ranked adventures, or maybe not even silver ranked adventures, even the newbie ranked adventures, the platinum ranked one, porcelain ranked ones, they were able to one-shot the goblins fairly easily, right? So 30 adventures or even 20 adventures versus 60 goblins, it seems to be very one-sided towards the adventures. So yeah, what that didn't really make sense at all, especially since you have the, I guess you could call the heavy infantry units of the hobgoblins and champions. So normally you're supposed to use that to break through the enemy front lines, and then you rely on your light infantry, which in this case are normal goblins, to do the cleanup work for you. So they're typically held in reserve back from your elite troops, your elite heavy troops, and those are the ones that clash, and then the light infantry would either do a flank maneuver, or they would once your enemy or your opponent breaks ranks, then they can go in and clean up. Same thing with the riders, right? So they're typically not supposed to be used as an individual attack, but an opportunistic attack, which is they do flankings while the two sides are clashing, and there's a main battle line, right? So it didn't really make much tactical sense for the Goblin Lord to command his army in this kind of fashion. It's a little bit too convenient for my taste, but again, I can see why they did this kind of thing because it makes sense from a more, I guess, fantasy or anime standpoint, right? You gradually build up the stakes and the opponents. But again, even with all that, I think even a bigger problem is it just doesn't feel very frightening or threatening, this goblin group, because we already know that Goblin Slayer and his companions in the past have slayed maybe 50 or so goblins when they were adventuring, right? And maybe even in the first episode alone, Goblin Slayer went underground and individually took out, I don't know, like something 25 goblins. So 100 goblins against 30 adventurers, you would think that, no matter which way you look at it, the 30 adventurers would win hands down, open field or not. Especially since your opponent didn't even take advantage of the open field to overwhelm you with numbers, right? So you can't really get the sense of threat when you consider that there's this many people here already. So I think that is a flaw in the storytelling. Of course, this is not the anime's fault, but the source material in itself maybe could have raised the stakes a little bit higher. Otherwise, it didn't really feel that threatening, this entire battle scene. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on the battles. The rest, not really much to talk about. Although once they rescued the shields, I was wondering, then shouldn't you just start using some AoE attacks, or just use bows and arrows and keep your distance, right? Since the goblins have to cross an open field, they're sitting ducks to long range weaponry. So the frontline guys don't even really need to fight if you think about it, since there's so many archers already. I counted at least 5, maybe 5 or 6. And then you also have the wizard, who, since she is silver ranked, I assume she has some sort of AoE attacks, even a fireball or something, right? So those could wipe out, 20, 30, 40 goblins easily. So if you really only send goblins in, it doesn't really make much sense, to be honest. And actually, the entire army composition doesn't really make much sense. If they really only had 100 goblins, then how in the world are they able to host 10 champions and 20, 30 riders or whatnot, right? Because the discrepancy between the fighting power, the fighting level of normal goblins versus hobgoblins and champions seems to be very drastic. So there doesn't seem to be nearly enough of the, I guess, rank and file soldiers of normal goblins than there are of champions and hobgoblins and whatnot. So that one was also a little bit iffy, I guess you could say. And yeah, that about concludes my thoughts for this episode. We left on sort of a cliffhanger where Goblin Slayer met up with, I assume it's the Goblin Lord, the one who's running away. So I expect there to be another twist at the end. It's probably not that simple. Maybe the Goblin Lord, even though he doesn't look like much of a fighter, maybe he has some immense fighting power, because we still have one whole episode to go, and it seems that the adventurers have already achieved an overwhelming victory, right? So I don't see how they can stretch this out to an entire episode when the battle is nearly over already. Well, I guess you can say that because the hobgoblins and the champions have just started their attack, but considering that even Goblin Slayer himself was able to basically take out a champion by himself, not quite 100% him just taking out a champion, but close enough, right? Close enough. So I don't expect these champions and hobgoblins to give the adventurers any hard time as well. So, but I don't know, maybe they will be able to stretch out an episode for this long. But so far, it seems that it's a foregone conclusion, and the stakes, the tensions are not high enough, right? So that's a little bit sad, but that's what we got, right? So yeah, I think that about concludes all of my thoughts. Looking forward to see if they have something more surprising in store for the next episode. In the meantime, like I said, for this episode, I can't really enjoy that much simply because I felt like the tactics the Goblin used were a little bit too stupid, right? So Goblin Slayer is Goblin Slayer. He thinks of everything. He's Batman basically. So he has a plan, and he's prepared. He prepared the spirit wall and whatnot. So kudos to him. But honestly, I feel like this is more of a case of the Goblin side being total idiots and not recognizing basic military strategy or doctrine. So, meh. In any case, that has been Goblin Slayer episode 11. I'm Maverick, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.